Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guest today is April Porter. I'm going to read you a fact list about April, and it's good. You're jaw dropping. April fills the gap between the franchise model and the executive level strategies business owners need to increase profits, build a team, and scale into multiple locations. She is CEO of Ask April Porter, creator of the Infinite Franchisee Program, former award-winning multi-unit franchisee, host of the Infinite Franchisee Show podcast, #1 international best-selling author, named to St. Louis's top 50 fastest growing companies 3 times, Trailblazer Award winner through the American Association of Franchisees and Dealers. She's an attorney, former municipal judge, and founder of the face group Franchise on Infinite Success, each week live inside the group with free business strategies and small business owners and franchisees that want to grow fast. And of course, she's been inducted into the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. April, we're so glad you're here with us. Thanks for making time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Wow, you have a lot of accomplishments under your belt. So you're an accomplished attorney, you're a business consultant, vicariously you're a coach, you wear all hats. I want to go back though, all the way back to law school, if you don't mind. Tell us what your experience was. Did you enjoy it? Did you? I saw that.
I think the face says it all, Tracy.
Yeah, says it all. Oh, goodness. Well, I was very blessed to be able to go to law school, an amazing law school on scholarship, but law school was not the best fit for me. It was something that I needed to do in order to achieve the goal of becoming an attorney. And so I'm glad that I did it. But during that time, I had moved to a new city. It was the very first time that I lived completely alone. Even through college, of course, I had roommates, and I had my own apartment by myself in a city that I didn't know how to get around. And then when I got to the law school, it was a beautiful building, and a top 25 law school in the country. So I knew it was academically where I should be, but socially it just wasn't the best fit for me. I'm very, very outgoing. I'd been, a cheerleader on the dance team all through college. So I thrive in like a school spirit atmosphere, and there wasn't a basketball team or football team worth rooting for. So there wasn't a lot of ways for me to connect with my fellow peers. And I just felt I was very homesick, and I felt a little bit like an outsider going through that process. And then obviously got the degree and was able to do great things with it. So as I said, it was beneficial, but I wouldn't want to do it again.
No second run on the law school.
Yeah, no.
It's one of those grin and bear it things. You get through it because the big bodacious goal was important enough that you were going to stay committed to it. It's interesting. You talk about cheerleader, dance squad, and I really think those roles are so underappreciated. Can you speak to that a little bit? I have a granddaughter who's a cheerleader, and I watch the hard work that she puts in and the role she plays to bring up that energy throughout the stadium and get us all excited. Never mind, it's an athletic feat to be a dancer, to be a cheerleader. So I guess the question is, do you think it's a sport? And what role did that play in your future in terms of discipline and focus and helping others and et cetera, et cetera?
Oh, 100%. It's a sport. And I think that society is coming around to that fact now. But back in the day when I was in college, it wasn't considered a sport. In fact, we were under the band department and we didn't have a place to practice. We had to practice in hallways and find places. And we were dancing 36 hours a week.
Wow.
Between practices and games. And we were also, while I was on the squad, we were ranked in the top in the country, and we placed the top 3 every year we went to a national competition. We were featured on ESPN. And so here you have this organization of 16 girls who are, killing it in practice and stuff. We're still holding full school schedules. We have these accolades and we can't get a place to practice, So it did take discipline it's very much hand in hand with dance. There's so many layers to being a dancer. There's a very technical side. So just like a basketball player would have to shoot, Michael Jordan shot 1,000 shots every day in order to become a master at, hitting the basket. I'm not a basketball player. But it's a very technical thing that he had to practice over and over and over again. And dance has a very technical side, only it's in every piece of your body, literally your toes to the arch of your foot, to where your ankle is positioned, to your knee, to your hip. All of it has a place to be. And so there's that technical aspect of it, as well as the athletic aspect, which is, flexibility and how strong you are so that you can lift yourself into the air and you can lift other people into the air. And then you have the creative piece that comes into play, where you have to make it, when you dance, you tell a story every time. And so you have to be able to tell that story with your movement, but then also with your expression. And so it really does require kind of a jack of all trades, I would say, in that realm. And the discipline definitely carries over into everything you do in life. And I credit my early dance teachers with really instilling discipline in me and just pure joy. I will say it is so joyful to just let go and dance. And I think a lot of people do it in secret, but I would encourage everyone to dance. Don't be ashamed. Just show your moves wherever you can.
Yeah, remember they had that series of outbursts. It was like a dance challenge where suddenly everybody was just getting up and dancing wherever they were. It started on an airplane. Yeah, that was just showing your moves. So yeah, let's fast forward a little bit. So you graduate law school and then you get into advocating for women who have been in domestic violence situations, correct? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. So I knew in law school that I wanted to be a prosecuting attorney. There was never a doubt in my mind that I was going to go into any other area of law. It was not for me to sit behind a desk and look at contracts all day. I wanted to be in the courtroom, and I wanted to be on the side of justice and prosecuting criminals, essentially, and holding people accountable for victimizing others. So, which also set me apart from my law students, because everybody else wanted a job at a big firm that was going to pay $250 an hour, So I got into prosecution and right away found the domestic violence track. After 3 months of being hired in my first job, I was made the head prosecutor of domestic violence unit, and began training people all over the state of Missouri and even nationally on how to prosecute domestic violence cases and how to investigate them, because it's very nuanced, because many times the victim doesn't want to cooperate for fear of retribution by the abuser. So that's where my career started. And that led to being placed on what is called the sex team, which is a terrible name for it, but it is what it is, which was to prosecute sexual assaults And those were even more difficult cases because the majority of our cases involved children. And they, with the popularity of CSI type television shows, there can be a unrealistic expectation that jurors hold as to what type of evidence you could expect to gather at a scene. And so it takes very specialized prosecutors, and we had a team of 8 full-time prosecutors dedicated to those types of cases in our county. And so, and then along with that came homicides. So that was my track as a prosecutor. I did that for 10 years, and that meant that I was in trial all the time because nobody wants to plead guilty to those types of crimes because they know that it means essentially that they're going to be in prison for a long time. And there's always a chance they can get off because the defense attorney's theory is always that the victim is lying. And so if they can convince the jury to doubt the victim's story in any way, shape, or form, then their guy gets to walk. And so, so what's really interesting about that is that trials require strategy. Every move you make in a courtroom is strategic because it was my job to win over 12 strangers and get them to, at the end of the week, go in a room together and vote unanimously to send someone to prison for the rest of their lives. And I always tell people, I mean, think about it. How often can you get your immediate family members to agree on what to have for dinner?
Right.
Right. So it's, I mean, it really takes a lot of strategy to present the evidence and the witnesses in a way that makes it easy for those jurors to connect the dots and see the truth and not be blinded by, you know, the, what we would call the smoke and mirrors of the defense.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. First off, thank you for taking up that torch. That had to be a very difficult role. What's interesting to me, along with the strategic side, because that's going to play into what you're currently doing, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is that you knew you wanted to be a prosecutor. There was a part of you that wanted to right some wrongs, correct?
Oh, 100%. I've been that way since I was a kid. My mom is that way. And I watched her growing up. I mean, even to this day, if she feels like something is out of whack in her office, she's tattletelling, right? I mean, she's not going to sit by and let someone take advantage of the company or the boss or things like that. And a lot of people don't appreciate that. You know, there is a stigma that can go along with, you know, ratting people out and things of that nature. But I always saw it as my mom was the only one willing to voice when something is wrong. And she was willing to stand up for the right thing, even if it wasn't popular. And so I really grew up with that model. And when I got into law school, I knew that I wanted to fight for victims of crimes. I saw that a lot of things that are out there with civil lawsuits, they seem so frivolous, right? I mean, neighbors fighting over like the 3 inches that a fence is on their property just doesn't really light me up, you know? No. But knowing that, you know, a child has been harmed and that person could go on to do that again, like that's just not on my watch. Like that's how I've been born and bred, I guess.
Yeah, there's a very clear due north for you, justice, injustice, and you're strong-willed enough and had this wonderful childhood that taught you if you see something that's unjust, unfair, you speak up, even if it's not popular, right? Even if it's considered uncool or whatever, but you do have a very strong due north. So if we took this disciplined dancer cheerleader. And we combined her with this due north individual that you are. And then we added a little bit of strategy to it, right? Which you learned as an attorney to get 12 people together on the same page to come up with a consensus, a unanimous consensus. You took all of that and have now built a business out of that. Can you tell us a little bit more how that all plays into what you're currently doing?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I guess that is the really, really cool thing about being an entrepreneur is that when you build your own business, you can pull from all of your different strengths, and there's really no limit as to what you can come up with. But I believe that when entrepreneurs are leaning into their strengths in their businesses, that allows them to help people at a whole different level and make an impact that, is just phenomenal. And so it wasn't an intentional thing. It's just about being in alignment, really with who I am is what led me to start Ask April Porter. And what we haven't talked about is that between all of that and now I was a franchisee.
Oh my, yeah, tell us about that.
Well, all right, let's go back again. So about 10 years into the legal situation, I loved what I did. I absolutely loved advocating for those victims, but it was very heavy subject matter. And I was ready to maybe take a break from it and try something else. And so I actually decided that I wanted to be a franchisee because I found a franchise that I really, really loved the model. It was kickboxing. And for me, kickboxing married like everything that I did with dance, the discipline, the movement, the technique, all of that with the entrepreneur spirit that I kind of had always had as well. And so I was a franchisee, and throughout that journey, I learned many, many, many things about franchising. Some of them were amazing, and some of them really pushed on that unjust button that I am sensitive to. And so I began advocating for franchisees while I was a franchisee. And ultimately, I sold all of my franchises in 2020. And that was planned. That didn't have anything to do with the pandemic. That was just part of my exit strategy that I had on day one. So when I exited, that's when I began Ask April Porter, which was really formalizing how I had been coaching and advocating for franchisees previously. Now I do that as part of my company. And we have a program 100% dedicated to franchisees because I really feel like there's a gap in the industry where there's a lot of services and opportunities for franchisors and even for franchise suppliers, but not for franchisees.
April, when you were describing your college experience, you were saying that it was a bit of a lonely place for you. Can you equate that with a franchise owner? They're in a new place, they're standing on new grounds. That can be a very lonely experience as well, can it?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. I remember when I first started out as a franchisee, and you have everything the franchisor gives you and all of that training. And you have your fellow franchisees across the country. But you standing in your own storefront in that unit day to day, it's like you don't know. At that point in time, you don't even know what you don't know, right? And like I remember looking at my numbers and being like, I feel like this is good. Is it good? I don't know. So I'm like trying to call the franchisor and be like, is this good? But then I'm like, the franchisor is going to tell me it's good because they want to boost me up and keep me going, right? So like, how do you actually know what you should be accomplishing? And if you're really on the path to that dream that got you into franchising in the first place. So 100%, I think it can be very lonely. Entrepreneurship in general can be very
It's lonely.
place.
I agree. Having been an entrepreneur my whole life, there's a lot of loneliness to it. So you have to have extra reserves and support system that might be outside of business.
Mhm.
So you advocated for the franchisees within the kickboxing franchise system you were in. So you brought in that lawyering justice side of you even then. You built your own business to a multi-unit franchise operation. Your exit strategy was to exit at a point with equity, of course, and then you're on to your next entrepreneurial endeavor. Can you share with us a little bit about what you're up to now in 2021?
Yes, it's so exciting. I absolutely love what I do. I love our clients. So we help franchisees really fill that gap between what they get from the franchisor and all of that unknown. Just like I said, feeling like I know that I probably should be doing something, but I don't really know what it is, right? And what I found during my journey as a franchisee is that in that void, that's where all of the secrets are that CEOs are using to grow their numbers month after month and year after year, to grow their teams into being leaders that really take ownership over their roles and are invested in helping the company grow. They see themselves as a piece of the puzzle and a valued piece of the puzzle, so that they're motivated to do that kind of work. And then also what they use to expand into multiple locations, right? So all of this stuff is known in the executive world. And of course, all of our franchisees got out of the executive world, corporate world, and they became a franchise, but now they don't have that support. They don't have access to those strategies. So that's what we're bringing to them. It's a ton of leadership. It's so crazy because I think a lot of franchisees really believe they're excellent leaders. They've been the people, in high school, you had the group project. And if Joe Blow wasn't going to pull his part, well, heck, you just do it and make sure the whole group got an A, right? So that's who our franchisees are generally. They're the go-getters, the never say die. I'm going to be successful and I know I can do it. And so hearing that, well, we really help you develop as a leader, some people are a little bit like, well, I don't need leadership. I'm a good leader, right? But it's totally different when you are actually trying to lead employees to develop into leaders, right? And that's the switch that I help people get, is that we don't just want to tell employees what to do or have them execute, but we want to develop them so that they could actually become a franchisee if they wanted to, right? And ideally, they can be the franchisee that buys your business as the owner, or maybe you go into partner and you can now scale into like another set of locations because you have developed these leaders. So that's a big part of what we do. Another big part of what we do that people undervalue, I think, in the world is just mindset. You have to have a different mindset running a 7-figure company than you did to run a 6-figure company. There is a shift there. It takes different skills. It takes a different perspective. So that mindset shift, we work on that as my clients go through the program. And then we give a lot of how-tos. So I know a lot of people out there and a lot of programs, they believe in telling you what you need to do, but they want to leave it up to you to figure out how. We don't do that. We're tactical. This is how you do it. Let's cut down the time. Let's cut down your trial and error. If you do these things, then you're going to have a product that you can use in your business to help you scale. And so we combine all of that in a 12-month program. It's called the Infinite Franchisee, so that people can take that and apply it to what they've learned from the franchisor, which is what makes the model different from the competition, right? How to market that particular thing as far as features and benefits. So it all works together.
A 12-month program. I wish somebody would have given me a 12-month program when I started my business. I'd probably be a whole lot further along than I am. brilliant idea to actually do a certain amount of hand holding, go through the process with them for 12 months as they build their business and as they build leaders within their organization who could step into either a vested role as a manager or potentially allow that franchisee to step out, and good team members are running those different locations.
Right.
Wow. So you also, and don't let me leap too fast here, I have a tendency to do that. So you also work with franchisors, baby franchisors, emerging franchisors, right? How is that program set up and how do you help our franchisors?
Yeah. So actually, coming into this business, it wasn't even necessarily my intention to help franchisors. We had a very clear focus on franchisees.
Mm-hmm.
And what we realized is that if we really wanted to change the franchising industry and we really want to help franchisees, we have to address what's going on at the franchisor level. We will need everybody on the same page, because when everyone's on the same page, we can work towards a goal that is consistent and is going to make everyone reach their dreams, right? So we saw that addressing franchising from the very beginning would be the most effective way to do that. So we do work with small business owners who want to become franchisors or early franchisors who are still in the emerging phase. And again, we have a 12-month program. And this might sound like, oh, okay, 12-month program, right? That's your thing. But really, evolution takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And like I said, mindset is a big piece of it. Mindset and habit changing requires practice. And so for our franchisors, what we're doing there is the program kind of evolves into two separate parts. Part number one, the first 6 months or so, is really dedicated to taking the model itself and making sure that it is 100% set up to scale to the level of being a rock star franchisor, right? We want to get not just to 100 units, but 500 units. But is what we have in place right now, can it really translate to 500 units? And most of the times for emerging franchisors, the answer is no. And what happens is they will start off with good processes and systems, and then they hit the 100 unit mark and they realize, oh my gosh, these processes and systems worked at that scale, but not at this scale. And they have to go back through and redo them. And then what you have is you have at least 100 franchisees facing changes that they weren't expecting in the model or in the system. And that's when the relationship can get a little bit rocky as well on both sides. And so we want to avoid all of that. We want to get it set up from the very beginning so that it can scale as big as the franchisor wants to go. And that's our first focus. And then our second focus is establishing the franchisor entity and the corporate office so that it's set up to handle that success with the right people in the right positions. They're doing the right job duties, and they are prepared to support their franchisees in the manner that's going to allow the franchisees to grow within their own units as fast as possible. Because when the franchisees grow fast, then that puts more revenue into the franchisor, and they can serve both their current franchisees and their future franchisees better.
I love how you work top down or bottom up, whatever the case calls for. I'm a little bit curious how you are having those difficult conversations starting all the way back in the courtroom, right? Those were really tough conversations. How does that translate now? Because I know it can't all be easy.
No, it can't be easy. It does take a lot of introspective work on our clients' side. So what we find, and this is a great tip for anybody out there for a difficult conversation, is instead of making statements, ask questions, right? And that's really how I lead, is asking questions. Sometimes my clients laugh because they'll ask me, hey, what do you think about this? And I turn them right now, well, what do you think about it? Right. But we all have to learn how to dive deeper and really ask ourselves the hard questions, ask ourselves the hard questions.
Mhm.
And I find that that's really the key, right? So when we're talking to an emerging franchisor who maybe sees that there's some kind of gap, right? It's like, well, how is that affecting your relationship with your franchisees? How is that affecting your ability to scale? How is that affecting your day? Like, how much stress is
Right.
distributed throughout your day because you don't feel settled in this foundation that you've created? And so that helps people really see that it's not about us saying your friend, you don't have a good franchise. I mean, that's not the case. To be quite honest, I don't want to work with anybody that doesn't have a good franchise, because that's not a good use of my time. And I'm certainly not going to try to sell a franchise that I don't believe is a great model, right? So it's not about that. It's about how can we be the best we can be. And very rarely can we get to being our very best completely on our own. That's, everybody needs a coach. And I know it's a crazy concept for a lot of people in business, but Olympians have coaches. They are the very best in the world at what they do. And yet they have a coach. And that coach couldn't get out on the track and do what they do, but they can help guide them and help them see things that they can't see themselves because they're so close to it and their perspective is skewed. And that's really what our role is.
It really is. The coach's role is to add perspective and help the client ask the right questions. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but it is the questions that we ask ourselves and we ask about our business that begin to come up with solutions, or at least recognizing the gaps, as you call it, or the challenges, or the place that I want to be, but I'm here, that gap. And we find those by asking those questions, whether it's introspective at what within me might be creating this. Am I not a good leader? Do I make poor decisions? Whatever it is. Or it's about the business, where we're asking what about the business could be better, more profitable, more efficient, more effective, more scalable, whatever it is. It is all about asking the right questions. And hadn't thought about that. That's very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wowza. Okay. We're actually kind of running out of time. I hate that when this happens. These anyway. It goes too fast, April. We're gonna have to.
I know.
So April, what is this last question, your big bodacious goal for your company?
Well, we are on a mission to change the franchising industry. And we want to change it for the better. Many people would look at the franchising industry and say there's nothing wrong with it. But the reality is it's been doing things the same way since its inception. And there's time for an evolution. And I think that the things that our society has gone through in the past, couple of years, as far as just social issues, there's a lot of room to really, really ask ourselves in the franchising industry, like, how can we be better? How can we be more forward thinking? How can we really grasp opportunities that are present today that weren't present, 5, 10, 25 years ago? And that's how we look at franchising. And so we're really hoping to change it. That's why we want to start at the beginning and help people see what the franchising industry can really be. So that's our big, big goal.
Our big bodacious goal: change the franchise paradigm.
Yes.
Shoot for the moon, right? I like your big thinking. Having been in the franchise space almost 30 years, I applaud you. I do think we are prime for this change. I think those in the franchise space are becoming more open-minded. and do realize some things need to evolve and change. So I like that you're taking up that torch and leading the way in that, on that charge. I love it. Always about injustice, isn't it? Let's do it right.
No,
Do
do it
no
the right way. I know there's some great franchisors in this industry, and they're doing it right, and they're empowering their franchisees, and everybody's making money, and everybody's hitting their dreams. And then there's a lot of franchisors that, whether they went into it for the wrong reasons, or they had a franchise developer come and say, hey, I want to make you a franchise. And they went along for the ride, not knowing what they were getting into. But there's a lot that just don't have the either bandwidth, the experience, the capital, or the desire to really educate and support the franchisees in the way that's necessary for everyone to succeed as a team. And so that's our goal, is to get that changed.
And help the franchisee at the same time by giving them a program to help them scale their own business and build leaders within their own organization, and to make money and to live their dream as entrepreneurs. It's that kind of two-sided component.
Yeah, well, and that's, I guess I kind of inferred that but because we have places in the franchising industry right now that aren't living up to what the franchisees expected, we're filling that gap.
Yeah.
And so that's really where we're trying to change that experience for existing franchisees right now by helping them through the journey they're on. And then we're trying to change it for future franchisees by changing the start of it as well. So that in 10 years from now, we'll have evolved the whole industry.
There you go. And you'll be out of a job. and you'll have to invent something new.
That's right. That's right.
Just like the starfish on the beach, right? Making changes one franchisee at a time if need be. But I love how you are just taking all of your knowledge and your expertise and the whole strategy and leadership development and combining it to fill this incredible niche that we know exists. So congratulations to you and your team. I applaud you. We applaud you.
Thank you. Thank you. My whole team has franchising experience as well.
That's great.
So I am so excited about that, because it does, what's the word I'm looking for? It confirms that this gap exists and different areas of franchising see it, and they're finding us and wanting to work with us. So that's amazing.
That is amazing. Well, we wish you fabulous success, April, and we really appreciate you carving out time for us today. Please let people know how to get hold of you. What's the best way if someone wants to learn more about Ask April Porter or your 12-month programs, whether they're a franchisee or a franchisor? How do they get hold of you?
Well, you can always find us on Facebook and join our Franchisee Infinite Success Facebook group. That's free, and we do live trainings in there every week to help all franchisees, whether or not you're in our program, and also our podcast, Infinite Franchisee. But we actually have a really cool thing coming up, which is our 5-day free masterclass, where we teach people how to scale their business in 5 days and give them tactical things that they can implement immediately in their businesses. And so we'd love to share that link with you, and anyone who wants to sign up and take that 5-day free masterclass is more than welcome.
Beautiful. We'll make sure to put it in our show notes, everyone. Again, thank you, April. Tracy, any final words from our sage, beautiful Florida girl?
I love the space that April plays in.
Me too.
That it takes so much, I think it takes so much brains and heart, a combination of both, to step into a space like that, where not only have you been this tremendous voice, this tremendous advocate, or what we would call a societal, and then bring that into such an advanced business space like the franchise world. So we just wish you Rebecca said, continued success. And you're definitely one to watch.
You're one to watch. We're going to keep an eye on you. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And to the rest of you listening in, thank you for joining us here on the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. We'll see you next week on another edition.